Back with another AEW Dynamite review for November 25th, 2020. And from top to bottom, it was a solid episode. Everything flowed nicely. There was a mix of matches, backstage segments, promos, in-ring. It all flowed nicely, which resulted in a fast 2-hour show. We kicked the night off with Hangman Adam Page versus John Silver of the Dark Order. And this was a nice, fun match to start. Both start off hot as Silver shows off his athleticism. Later, the Meat Man goes flying due to a Page back body drop. Silver delivers some kicks to Page's chest, and Page retaliates with a chop. Then Silver uses his quickness to get a snap German suplex off on Page for a 2 count. But in the end, Page later wins via his buckshot lariat. Nice match, and I give it a 3. It was definitely Dynamite worthy. Post-match, the Dark Order comes out, and Evil Uno tries to recruit Page again, maybe. He says he regrets the group laying a finger on him earlier on in their AEW careers, and maybe this creates another element of intrigue for Page to join the Dark Order now that he is at his lowest of the lows. We shall see. Next, we had an Omega segment. He was interviewed by Alex Marvez. He said last week the contract signing didn't take place, and Omega's thoughts were it's given him a lot of time to reflect. The more things change, the more they stay the same. A year ago, they had a match, and that was at Full Gear. It was unsanctioned, so the record didn't count. Fast forward, let's sign that contract. And before he walked off, he dissed Mox's dad in closing to add heat, more heat on himself. We shall see how that transpires later. Next match, we had Powerhouse Hobbs. Will Hobbs, formerly known as, now he is known as Powerhouse Hobbs, versus Lee Johnson of the Nightmare Family. And he has regular appearances on Dark. Hobbs just manhandles Johnson pretty much the whole match. And he eventually puts him away with a slam for the win. This match, given that it was a squash, it gets a 2.5. It was still good. It did its job. Post-match, Taz speaks. He sends Hobbs to the back. Taz doesn't like that AEW doesn't acknowledge what the FTW title represents. And his mic gets cut off twice during his rant. Then Cody comes out to shut him up pretty much. Cody even had his mic on from his producer duties backstage in Gorilla. So in the end, they exchanged words back and forth. But then Cody dropped a line of Taz's son not training with him, but he was training with Cody at the Nightmare Factory. And this sent Taz, he said he didn't have to go there. He didn't like that. And just when Cody turned his back on him, Taz put Cody in the Taz mission. And we haven't seen that in years since Taz is retired. And this probably will be the only time we see it. And that caught a lot of people by surprise, even myself. And it was probably the best segment of the night. Next up, we had Eddie Kingston being interviewed by Alex Marvez backstage. He said he's not mad about the Death Triangle reforming. Pac has been gone for 8 months. And he said things have changed. Then, mid-sentence, Mox shows up and confronts Kingston pretty much about what happened last night when he got beat down. And Kingston denied any involvement as they both stared each other down. And then Mox walked away. This followed the next match, which the newcomers Top Flight versus the Hybrid 2, TH2, and Helico and Jack Evans. And Helico looks to slow down Darius of Top Flight by keeping him grounded to start the match. Dante later goes for the pin after he gets tagged in. It didn't do well. Back from the break, Dante tags in Darius for the hot tag, and he runs wild a bit. He then shotgun drop kicks Evans from the top rope, and he gets a 2 count for that. TH2 wins via a submission hold. I think it was called the Navarro Deathlock from Angelico. Post-match, he held it longer than he should have, and this prompted the Bucks to come out to make the save for Top Flight. And this moves the feud of Young Bucks and TH2 forward. And you gotta like the push that TH2 is getting now. They won a handful of matches so far, and they've been featured on Dynamite, which is a nice plus. Next up, we had Vicky Guerrero and Nyla Rose in a segment. If Brandy needs any advice, Vicky said, call her. And the segment was over. She said more, but I didn't get to take too many notes on it. Next, we had an FTR vignette. They give the Bucks their props for the 3 seconds it took for them to beat them and become the new World Tag Team Champions. And Dax says, just because you beat Jesse James doesn't mean you're bad as him. They need the tag team championships. And that ended the promo. And I think the FTR will get those belts back sooner rather than later. I don't think the Bucks will have a long reign, but we'll see what happens. Next up, we had SCU, Frankie Kazarian, and Christopher Daniels versus Jericho and Hager of the Inner Circle. This marked the first time that Christopher Daniels and Chris Jericho ever faced off in a ring. Jericho and Daniels lock it up for the first time ever. They get the better of one another. Eventually, we head to break with the Inner Circle in charge. Back from break, Hager continues his dominance of Daniels. Kazarian then gets his hot tag as he runs wild on both. He then covers Jericho after a leg drop for a 2 count. Daniels then hits his BME, the best moonsault ever, for a broken up 2 count. MJF then hits Daniels with his ring, and Jericho follows it up with a Judas effect for the win. Post-match, Kazarian takes out his anger on MJF, but the Inner Circle then swarms him. Then Scorpio Sky comes out for the save with a chair in hand. Everyone bailed. People say, why were so many guys running from one guy with a chair? Well, there's a chair. A chair is a formidable weapon. You can take out multiple people with just that one chair. Next up, we had the contract signing, Omega and Moxley. During Omega's grand entrance, as the camera panned on him, focused on the entrance tunnel, Mox then walked up behind him in a nice visual and then proceeds to take out Omega before he finishes his entrance. He then paradigm shifts Omega onto the title after they got to the ring. And then Mox says, consider us even. There's one way he can become champ, and he has to dig down deep and find the Omega everyone thinks he is. Take your shot, because you're only going to get one. And then Mox proceeds to sign the contract. Thought it was a good segment. And the promo work that Mox does is just chef's kiss. Then we followed that up with the Inner Circle backstage with Alex Marvez. He's working a lot tonight. Kind of man sucker punches another, MJF says. Well, he does. He just did it. After a fair and square victory, yeah, right, that's what Jericho says, Cash Dare puts his hands on MJF. It'll be Kazarian versus Jericho for the first time ever next week. And it's all over, Jericho says. Then we followed this up with the Women's World Championship match. Anna Jay, the challenger, versus Hikaru Shida, the champion. This would be the second time they've had a match together. The first was during Anna Jay's debut back in April, earlier this year. So long ago. Both lock it up to start. Then they have a shoving contest after. Shida later tilt-a-whirl back breaks Jay and follows it up with a knee strike. Jay then asks for a chair, and Tay Conti was on the outside of the ring. She reluctantly lets Jay have the chair, but eventually the ref takes it out of her hands, and during this, Jay reaches for Shida's kendo stick and uses that on Shida behind the ref's back. But it was to no avail because Shida did not go down with this. She later wins via a Tamahashi knee strike, and Shida retains. And as a result, she's beaten just about every lady in the division now. So who will eventually take her down, I wonder? Well, it seems that we got our answer, because post-match, as Shida was making her way up the ramp, Abadon makes her presence felt. She comes crawling out of the tunnels, blood in her mouth, and she grabs Shida's title after Shida backed away in shock and pretty much telling her, without saying anything, that she is next in line. And she picks the title up and then licks it, bloody mouth and all. Blood is on that title, legit. Because after the show, there was a video of her wiping it off backstage. So there you go. That should be an interesting feud, because Abadon fought Shida back in March. This was before the pandemic. And now we come full circle. And they're going to fight for much higher stakes. It should be good stuff. Looking forward to that. Following that, we had Ricky Starks, and along with Hobbs and Cage, Starks rages on Cody after Taz stormed out of the building earlier that night. It was a good promo from Starks. Showed anger and intensity, and he meant what he said. And we're going to get a follow-up next week, most likely. And this led us into the final match of the night, the main event. The Butcher and the Blade versus the Death Triangle. Pac and Rey Fenix. To start, both teams go at it before the bell rang. The Butcher and the Blade beat down Pac and Fenix. Eventually, Butcher and the Blade defeat Pac and Fenix due to Kingston's interference at the end of the match. I didn't get to take too much notes on this because I was too distracted with the match. But I think this would be the first time that Butcher and the Blade won a main event match, so that's good for them. Post-match, they beat down on Pac and Fenix. The Bunny brings a chair into the ring. Kingston then DDTs Pac on the chair twice, and before he gets to do it again, Lance Archer comes to the rescue, and he lays waste to everybody in the ring. He attempted to beat down Kingston some more, but he backed out. He stopped that momentum and just rolled out of the ring before things got worse for him. There you have it. All that talk Archer was doing on Dark and stuff, I guess it was leading to this, to him taking down the family, because either he's going the face route or he's a tweener. He's going to be a good and bad guy depending on the situation. Should be interesting. We'll find out next week. And that's the show. That's all I got. Like I said, it was solid. Everything flowed well. And I give that main event a 3. It was good. Top Flight versus TH2, I give that a 3 as well. Definitely another banger from those two. Jay and Shida, I give that was a 3 also. It was good, even though it was too short, but it was a decent match. And there we have it. There is the review for Dynamite November 25th, 2020, a day before Thanksgiving. And we'll be at it again next week for the Winter is Coming episode. So we'll see how many eyes that one brings, and I'll catch you then.